Good afternoon, everyone, or as we would say in Australia, g'day mates. I hope everyone here is doing well and that you are enjoying our last day together in Vancouver. The sessions this morning were absolutely fantastic, very educational and informative. Between the focus sessions, echo sessions and cornerstone presentations, there was something for everyone. I hope you all leave here with ideas that you can use to improve your business when you implement these when you get home. We have a great afternoon of main platform presentations, starting with a fantastic speaker, Tate. For 14 years, Ed was a successful national account executive, selling over $500 million in products and services to corporations, entrepreneurs throughout the United States. Currently, he is a principal of Tate and Associates, a professional development firm, and he is also the author of 3 books on how to stay motivated and sell effectively. His sales techniques will help you become a better producer and continue to qualify for MDRT. Please welcome Ed Tate.
Good day. There are over 11,000 client engagement behaviors that produce top results. Why 11,000? Because that's the number of attendees at this year's record-setting MDRT meeting. Each and every one of you has client engagement behaviors that produce top results. Congratulations. My name's Ed Tate, and I'm here to talk to you about 3.5 client engagement behaviors that produce top results. Client engagement habit number 1 is top producers, they use stories rather than statistics to engage their clients. Raise your hands if you are a do-it-yourselfer. That is, rather than hiring somebody else, you like to do things on your own. Raise your hands high if that's you. Look around, look around, look around. Look at all of these do-it-yourselfers. Do-it-yourselfers. Was there ever a do-it-yourself project that, looking back on it, you should have never done? Anybody here? Look around, look around, look around. I asked this question one time in Las Vegas, and a woman shared with me that while attempting to put up her curtains, she knocked herself out with a hammer. Now, in my world, my DIY went BAD story is called the sprinkler system incident. You see, many years ago, I used to live in Denver, Colorado. And after a long, hard winter, I turned on my sprinkler system, my underground sprinkler system, and I discovered I had a problem. There's a huge leak. I call up a sprinkler system repair company. I talk to a guy by the name of Rob. Rob informs me that it's going to cost over $500. $500. I said to myself, I can do this myself. Do-it-yourselfers. Have you ever said those fateful words? I went online. By the way, this is before there was Google, YouTube, or Facebook. I went online and I found a video of a guy who had repaired his sprinkler system for $25. I then informed my wife, Kathy, my next ex-wife, about my scheme. And she said, pay the $500. I said, honey, I got this. I can do this. Do-it-yourselfers. Have you ever said those words? Anyway, I'll never forget the day. It was a beautiful Saturday morning. I had all my tools. And then I discovered something. I had a problem, and that was this. I discovered that real life is different from the internet. Anybody here know what I'm talking about? You see, in the video, they had dirt and soil. In my yard, we had something called clay. Have you ever tried to dig wet clay? It weighs 3 times the amount of dirt and soil. It took me over 4 hours to repair my sprinkler system, but finally, I did it. And ta-da! I was so proud of myself, I ran back into the house to tell my wife, Kathy, to show her my work. Just as she came out, there was a rumbling at the scene of the crime. I'm sorry, the scene of the repair. and it started shaking, and it blew up. Boom! There was pieces of sprinkler system everywhere, grass and clay. I refused to make eye contact with Kathy. I immediately got on my cell phone and talked to Rob, the repairman. He must have sensed the desperation in my voice. How much do you think it costs now? Over $2,000. And Rob was a very savvy businessman. He said, Ed, that will be cash only, no credit cards. So I had to go off to the bank to get the money. Now, in my neighborhood, we had a neighborhood watch program. That is, and the motto was, if you see something, say something. So if you saw something suspicious, you were supposed to report it. Well, anyway, my neighbor heard the loud noise. She looked out of her window. She saw this big hole in my yard, and she said to herself, oh my, they got the Tates. She calls the police. Anyway, I returned to my yard. There are police officers in front of my yard. There are 2 fire engines, paramedics, and 10 to 12 of my neighbors. One of my neighbors, George, walks up to me. He says, Ed, are you and your family okay? What happened? I was just trying to fix my sprinkler system. That wasn't the worst part. I'll tell you the worst part a little bit later on. At that point in time, Rob the repairman shows up. I give him $2,000. It only takes him 15 minutes to make the repair. And again, that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was this. You know, every year in my neighborhood, there would always be a party, and someone would always bring up, he says, hey, do you remember that time that Ed tried to fix his sprinkler system? And here are some of the lessons that we can learn from this. There's 2 ways to do anything. Number 1, you can do it yourself, or you can get help. Here's the problem with do-it-yourselfers. They don't know when to get help. They don't know when they should hire professionals like yourselves. Here's another lesson that we can learn from this experience as well. Listen to your spouse. I could just stop right here, yes? I met a past president of MDRT. He was married to his beautiful bride for 67 years. I asked him what was the secret to his success. He said, yes, dear. Here's something else, MDRT members, I want you to contemplate. Another form of competition is the internet. It is now Google and YouTube and any do-it-yourselfer who thinks they can do things on their own. They think mistakenly they can replace your many years of experience with a 5-minute online search. Here's what top producers recognize is they recognize that that's a form of competition, and they use stories rather than statistics to engage their clients. Now, there's 3 reasons why you should use stories to engage your clients. All right? So, everyone hold up your hands like this. Repeat after me and say, stories are sticky. Please tell your neighbors, stories are sticky. Please, stories are what? Sticky. Stories are sticky. And here is the science behind stories being sticky. This comes from the book entitled Made to Stick by Chip and Dan Heath. It's called the sticky story ratio. That's 3 to 1. For every point that you're trying to make, you need 3 pieces of evidence, 3 examples to make your message stick. And make sure that one of those pieces of examples is a story. This is a cognitive researcher, Jerome Berner, who said the following: a fact wrapped in a story is 22 times more memorable than a fact alone. 22 times more memorable. If you want your message to be sticky, wrap it in a story. So how do you come up with sticky stories? I want you to use what I call the PAR storytelling technique. P-A-R. P stands for problem. A stands for action. R stands for results. For example, if you are with a prospective client, you're going to describe a problem that once faced one of your customers who is similar to that client. So that's the problem piece. You're going to describe the actions that you took and the results they achieved. For example, let's say for example, you have a couple, they run their own business. They're concerned that if either one of them is ever hospitalized, that will impact their household income. By working with you, you came up with an income protection plan, and that's no longer a worry for that couple. Do you see how that works? Problem, action, results. So client engagement habit number one, top producers use stories rather than statistics to engage their clients. Habit number two, top producers reverse what they talk about first. Top producers reverse what they discuss first. In a moment, I'm going to have you stand. Now, if you choose not to stand, or if you don't want to stand, that's your choice. You don't have to stand if you don't want to. Yes? Got it? Okay. Then after I ask you to stand, I want you to repeat the words that you see on the screen. You got it? All right. And for those of you who are in overflow, I'm watching you as well. All right. I want you to stand too. All right. So everyone please stand. And I want you to say, Ed. That would be. So what? Who cares? What's in it for me? It's all about me. Please turn to one of your neighbors and say, neighbor, so what? Who cares? What's in it for me? It's all about me. You may be seated. I'm a little different, right? This is what people are thinking every time you speak. So what? Who cares? What's in it for me? It's all about me. By the way, this is what you were thinking when I first came on stage. Am I right? Top producers recognize this, and they're prepared for this. They're prepared for the so what. They're prepared for the who cares. They're prepared for what's in it for them and make it all about them. I recently interviewed a top executive from a large insurance company. He's a partner. And he says, before I ever mention anything about my company, my services, or myself, I begin about them. I begin about them. I'm a former executive in the computer industry. In my introduction, it was mentioned I've sold over 500 million. Back in the day, we were taught to sell your company first, sell yourself next, then your products and services. Have you noticed anything that's missing? The client. We talked about the client. Then, believe it or not, it worked. That philosophy will not work today. You have to begin about them. You have to dive deep into your customers and clients today. So client engagement habit number two, top producers reverse what they talk about first. They begin about them. They begin about their clients and their prospects. Client engagement habit number three, top producers communicate without resistance. Top producers communicate without resistance. In the resource, Story Selling for Financial Advisors, the authors state the following. If you don't invest in sufficient discovery, that is asking questions, you appear to be more interested in pushing product than you are in helping your clients. Top producers use a tool called effective questions. Here are the traits of effective questions. Number one, they're open-ended. Number two, they begin with what or how. They do not begin with why. Here's the reason why. Why questions have a tendency to put people on the spot or put people on the defensive. So use what or how with regard to your questioning. Next, the effective questions are designed in the direction of the client's goals. And the client talks more than the advisor, and of course the advisor must listen. So let's talk about how to design your own effective questions. This diagram represents this. That direction represents resistance. This direction represents attraction or towards their goal. So step number one in designing your own effective questions, number one is, where am I concerned that someone might focus? Where am I concerned that they may be resistant? So write down the answers to that. Step number two is, where do I want them to focus? Well, obviously, I want them to focus towards the goal. Obviously, I want them to focus in the area of client attraction. Step number three, what effective questions would cause that focus? What effective questions would cause that focus? So here are some examples of effective questions. This is one of my favorites. What would make our time together wildly successful for you? What would make our time together wildly successful for you? I want you to write that one down. I want you to capture that one. I also want you to test it. My contact information is in the MTRT manual. Email me and let me know how this question worked for you. Pretend we are directing the movie of your life. How do you want the story to end? How do you want the story to end? What is a financial challenge that, if solved, would bring you peace? And here's my favorite effective question of all time: what else? What else? What else is the absolute perfect follow-up question? So let's pretend that we asked that first question: what would make our time together wildly successful for you? After the client gives you an answer, you follow it up with what else? And then after they give you another answer, you follow up with another form of what else? And you follow up again with what else? You dive down deeper into the topic or the subject. And here's what top producers do. Just when it feels really uncomfortable to ask what else again, guess what they ask? They ask, what else again? This is how they get to know their clients and their prospects at a very deep level. So client engagement habit number 3, top producers, they communicate without resistance, and they use a tool called effective questions. Client engagement habit number 3.5. Top producers know when to change their habits. In a moment, I'm about to share with you a poem that's written by a lady by the name of Portia Nelson. It's entitled An Autobiography in 5 Short Chapters. Now, some of you may have heard this poem before. Please tell your neighbors that Ed tells it the best. Other neighbors, please tell that person, we'll see. And it goes like this. Chapter 1. I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. But it's not my fault. I'm not to blame. I'm not responsible. It takes a long time for me to dig myself out of this hole. But eventually, I do. Chapter 2. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk, but this time I pretend it's not there. I still fall in. It's still not my fault. I'm still not to blame. I'm still not responsible. It still takes a long time for me to dig myself out of this hole. But eventually, I do. Chapter 3. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see the hole. I still fall in. It's a habit.